Hello and welcome to Simonheals. My name is Simon, and I'm really excited today to be meeting up with Celine O'Donovan, who this isn't the first time that we've got together to record a conversation. We've had several conversations that we don't record, but and just recently we started to have a conversation around spiritual laws and also their relationship with our health as well. And it was such a good conversation that we thought, right, let's do this again and record it and share it. So I'm really hoping that today we'll be able to kind of capture the energy of that initial conversation that we had and the kind of the essence of it. Yeah, welcome, Celine. Good to see you.
Thank you, Simon. Great to be here and again. And yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think how this started was well, how did this start? I think it was a subject that was kind of like coming onto your kind of radar, and then
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I think it has been coming on my radar recently because I'm trying to find nearly a language or maybe this isn't the right way to go about it, or a system or some sort of way of understanding what I'm learning through the process of being ill. So I know I've mentioned this before on the channel, but I had breast cancer in 2016, 6 years ago. And so much has happened and shifted and changed in me for the better. And I want to share that with other people. And I want to support maybe others who are going through what I was going through then. And I happened one day to be pulling things together and reading different things. And I came across these universal laws. And I've heard people talk about natural law, law of nature, spiritual laws, universal laws, different names. So I started searching on YouTube and I just found some really interesting information that resonated with me. Now, I'm no expert at all. I've literally just dipped my toe in, but it's really helped me rather than, because the whole journey for me was from outward to inward, to sort of being plugged into the world outside and letting that dictate my life in some respects without even knowing, to plugging out, which I did for a few years, and through illness and came to a very quiet place and I started to plug in inside. And I started to realize, okay, there is another way of living, but how do I sort of going deeper into that, I suppose, and understanding that there are natural laws and nature. I think maybe just being out in nature over the last few years, every single day. And I've found myself stopping at different seasons, different times, looking at the leaves falling off the trees now, looking at a really, yesterday I went down at sunset and the sea was really wild and powerful. And I just felt, wow, you've got that inside you. You've got that power. So all of this, I think it really started with shifting myself, obviously, but also being out in the natural world. And because the natural world understands the natural laws, it is, it's a manifestation, I suppose, isn't it? Of the, yeah. So yeah, that's sort of what's brought me, and it's trying to sort of capture. I hope maybe I'd love to hear your perspective. Just to give you an example, I read yesterday about one of the laws, the law of gender, which I was, oh, what's that? And maybe there were different perspectives or views. I don't know. This was just one that was 12, and it was really talking about the masculine and feminine balance within us. That's really what it was about. And it was saying that creativity comes from embracing both the masculine and the feminine. And creation, if we think of creation, it's the masculine and feminine. And it was just how it was put. I said, okay, well, I had no balance of those genders, let's say masculine and feminine within me. The right, left side of the brain, the intuition, the logic, the doing, the more intuitive, reflective. So even that, you know, I just straight away identified, you know, I was totally out of balance in that area and many others.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's actually been quite reassuring to go something that intuitively I was sensing. I'm beginning to see, okay, this is, I was plugged into an artificial world and I'm now plugging back into a more natural, organic way of being, is how I feel.
Mm.
And it is how we are designed to live, you know, isn't it? It's
Mm.
yeah, it's a long-winded, sorry.
No, I mean
Introduction.
you covered a lot there really. So, but what I really take from what you just said is that you experienced breast cancer. Now, prior to that, you were living out of alignment with nature and the natural laws.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yes.
and that through the process of healing from that disease, which was caused by that misalignment, it has almost forced you back into alignment as a necessity to come back to health. So really, I think from that, and I would very much suggest this, that our health is really directly proportionate to our alignment with nature and our own inherent nature. Each of us has our own nature within that. So we've got the kind
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
broader nature in the broader sense as us as being part of the natural world. Then each of us has our own nature, which we must be aligned with and expressing and really embodying. Yeah, which some people
Mm-hmm.
refer to this also as our truth, our personal truth. We need to be
Yeah.
embodied, don't we, and live
Yes.
our personal truth, and that how disease, in a way, is a mechanism that
Mm.
warns us when we're out of alignment, and in order to heal, brings us back into alignment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
That's yeah.
kind of what I take from what
No,
you
that's
said.
lovely. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
More succinctly said than me, but that's exactly it. You know, and isn't it interesting, the language and everything, the way
Mm.
we're speaking, that I think I found as well, I'm beginning to get, maybe this is why I have a sore throat, beginning to get the confidence to speak that truth more, because it's a language and a way of understanding the world that is very different to what we've been taught since,
Mm.
or what I was taught definitely growing up. And I found myself as I've shifted, trying to shifting the conversations, but it's not easy in a world that's still predominantly in the old disease is something awful that befalls you and it's random and there's nothing you can do.
Mm.
And I understand where people are, but it's trying to find a way, like you said, to come into your own unique truth, which is what I think our experiences, don't they? Our life experiences are sort of paving the way for
Mm.
us to really shine our truth in the world. Because every single experience I've had, and it's been very healing, um, and in undoing a lot of the things that I was taught are leading me to my own truth and sharing that with the world. But it's like what you said there, disease being a mechanism to bring you back into balance.
Mm.
You know, I can't, you know, that's still something, isn't it? Very, I don't know how you find that, but I would say that in my case to everyone, that has been my passion. And that's why I wrote a book on the topic. And I speak very personally because I'm very conscious of ever, you know, um, I suppose it's part of, I suppose, my own journey to be able to say that more powerfully, I think, in the world, because I
Mm.
think what you said there is just so important, and it is so empowering and so freeing. Um, you know, that was the most amazing thing for me to finally see. I actually said life, I remember feeling life is beginning to make sense to me. Finally, it took cancer for life to start making sense. And I've said that to so many, because it's the truth. Nothing of how I'd been taught how to live. I'm sure you have the same experience. I'd be interested to hear as well, you know, in terms of where it led you to now, that I just remember so many days and looking around at other people going, do they not, they're not feeling what I'm feeling? This isn't making sense. So it's been a wonderful journey to sort of find a way of living, which I have, and it's still a work in progress, that unbeknownst to me is sort of in tune with the natural laws, of the laws of nature. You know, it sort of happened in its own way. So it's a lovely way. I always find I need a way to sort of capture the essence of what's happening, and maybe to be able to talk to. And I think it's a wonderful way to be able to talk to people. People can, if I started talking very spiritually or about God and source, that will resonate with some people, but not with everyone. But I think when you start talking about nature and natural laws, and, you know, I think most people, I found, even mentioning it to, can sort of, it resonates somewhere in them, maybe more easily. So I think it's a really useful, way to understand.
Yeah. I mean, certainly my experience growing up in England, a very kind of ordinary upbringing, but I was very much educated through the systems of education which start in the family, because my parents, like many parents themselves, were educated. Educated basically means brainwashed. If you translate the word, it basically means mind controlled. So so I was mind controlled, as is nearly everyone, to believe that we have these certain roles that we have to play in life, and that there's a certain definition or definitions of what success is. So, you know, in terms of career achievement, material achievement, and those kind of things, you know, maybe it also involves getting married to a certain kind of person, having a certain kind of family, etc., etc. And also part of that education was to believe and to understand and believe that all of this takes effort. It takes dedication, that there's going to be sacrifice involved, that there's competition, that there is, that if you want something in life, then there's a price to pay. All these kind of beliefs and ways about going about life. And I've spoken to many people about this over the years, and many people can kind of relate to that. You're nodding your head, so I guess you could kind of relate.
Absolutely.
I think most people can kind of relate to that. And that of itself, there's a friction in that. There's a lack of flow. It takes our energy. It literally, we're using energy to achieve things in life and make things happen. And this burns people out. This burns us out, and this makes us sick. And sure enough, it made me sick, as it made you sick, and it makes many people sick. And if you look at us as a collective species, we're sick because this is how we've been living. And so, as with you, you know, firstly, the kind of medical system, the system that made me sick wasn't going to make me better anytime. You know, I soon realized that, so I had to look at alternatives. And now I'm about, 16, 17 years on from that, and that's taken me down a very different kind of life path, where I'm I've really dedicated my life to not only continuing my own healing journey, but to supporting others on their healing journey. But a big part of this has been realizing, researching, understanding what you're referring to here as natural laws, universal laws. I call them spiritual laws. And what I've realized through this is that there is a completely different way of living, that you can almost turn all of that on its head. And it's about lack of effort, lack of resistance. It's about flow. It's about things come easily. It's about collaboration, not competition. You know, synergy. And these kind of, so I have put together, and it was interesting that you asked me about this, because I do a workshop on this here at the retreat in Thailand. So once a week, we do an evening workshop, which is on the spiritual laws and the law of attraction.
Wow.
So,
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't know that. But so
you'll have to do that.
So
bring it online.
Yeah, maybe I will actually. And actually, I think what I'd really like to do is to offer the notes to this in the comments below. I'll leave a link, and if anyone wants to download these,
fantastic.
Yeah, and now,
oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Now, these on, you know, you were just telling me about. You just heard about this law of gender. Now, I've never heard of that before. And I'm not sure that there is a definitive set of laws. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah, but I want to share with you I've identified 11 main laws. Okay.
Great.
And these for me are about how do we shift from living a life misaligned with nature, the natural laws, our own true nature, back into alignment, out of a life of effort, inertia, stress, where we're maybe chasing goals that aren't our goals. They're the goals that have been given to us by our societies and our families and our culture and our religions and our et cetera, you know?
Yeah.
So this is really about finding our own true purpose, our own innate nature, and then being able to live in alignment with that. So would you like me to share these just one by one? So I'll go through each of them, and maybe we can just kind of dissect each one of them or a little bit and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And maybe you've got more to add and we can build on this. But so the first law, I tried to put them in an order that kind of makes sense. So the first law is the law of pure potential. And if you have even a kind of basic understanding of quantum physics, and my understanding is only basic, that all energy exists in potential at any given moment. And what that energy manifests as being is very much dependent on the observer of that energy. So it's called the observer effect in quantum physics. And yeah, there's
yes,
so
I've heard of that. Yeah.
You've heard of that. And so another way of saying that is what we experience as the world around us is only there because we are observing it. If we didn't observe it, it's just energy. Okay. So we can so we are literally creating through the process of being the witness, of being the observer. So our role is to observe. So rather than doing, So we get away from that doing energy to make things happen. And then this is when we get into manifestation, by observing, by becoming the observer. And in order to do that, we need to spend time in silence. You can't observe when you're busy doing, you know, and you've got that constant mental chatter going on. And this is where practices like meditation are so important, because when you meditate as the observer of yourself, then you are literally sitting creating your experience. And this is when you combine meditation with like visualization practices, for example. That's so powerful. You're actually starting that process of bringing something into being, you know. So what do you think of that? How does that?
Oh, I think that's wonderful. It isn't one that I came, it probably is, you know, probably people describe them differently. But absolutely, when you started, I suppose how I just replying that to my own life and how it has started to take shape is shortly after I had cancer and I was in a bit of transition, I ended up doing the Artist Way course, the book by Julia Cameron, for anyone who hasn't heard of it. I had already been brought into a very silent, still place because everything really had shut down, you know, my physical body, my mind. So I felt all that chatter, unbeknownst, this was all sort of unconscious at the time, sort of just quieting down. And so I was doing the Artist Way, just sort of opening up that sort of creative aspect. But it also was part of that we started doing visioning and vision boards separately. And I also trained as a life coach as well. So a big part of that was visualization. So without knowing it, I started to spend more time in quiet, actually visualizing the life I wanted to live, because I started thinking about, well, you know what you don't want, but what do you want, Celine? So, and it wasn't about the doing. I know what you're saying there. I mean, obviously there's action that has to come after, you know, sometimes to support that when you're in alignment. But it was around my intent of describing it. I was getting clear through being in the silence. Maybe it's slightly different. I'm not sure, but I started to see quite clearly a life that I wanted to live. And I didn't start by actively running around doing. It's very interesting. It sort of just it sort of showed itself. And maybe that is, I'm not sure now if I'm explaining that very well, but it sort of was being brought into that silence. And at the same time, I hadn't looked at it as being the observer, but that is, that is probably because that's what was happening at the time, because I wasn't able to do anything. So in another way, something was starting to shift and I was starting, so it does make a lot of sense.
No, I think that's a very good example of that in practice. And how, you know, it's a really different approach to moving forward in your life from like setting goals, setting yourself tasks. Okay, I'm here, I want to get to there. What do I need to do? You know, it's more, so it's a much more receptive. It's a more receptive, it's a more yin, it's a more feminine. And I know that you understand this, and probably anyone that watches this also understands this, but when we talk about feminine and masculine, we're not really talking about gender. We're talking about that active energy of the masculine and that more receptive energy of the feminine, which we all embody. And then, once that receptivity has happened, and you kind of move into that realm of potential, then maybe that masculine kind of energy then starts to become relevant in making things happen. And that's that kind of yin yang balance of those polarities, isn't it?
I had heard somewhere it's spoken as well about this law of inspired action. These are other principles that maybe have you know, people have just found a way of capturing and putting words on. But I thought that was really nice, because that's describing exactly what you said.
It's exactly
After that,
that, isn't it?
Isn't it?
You know, and when action is inspired, it's not effort. It's not, you know, it's not a job. If anyone's doing a job, then they're doing the wrong thing. You know, life's about, yes, having your work, but your work is a purpose. It's about a purpose. When you have a sense of purpose, whether it's building a house, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's cooking a meal, whether it's, you know, the kind of work that you do, then there's no real effort involved. It comes from a place of inspiration. The word inspiration means when spirit comes in. So when spirit comes into us, you know, this is when we're in the grace, you know, when we're in the grace of God and or the Holy Spirit. Some, you know, some people, you know, might refer to that as the Holy Spirit as well. In Reiki, we refer to that as the key, the energy of all that is. So many different cultures use different words to describe that. But again, once you are aligned with that energy, and that energy is literally flowing through you, isn't it? You know, it's, you know, people use words like channeling, like a lot of many great artists, or like you've written, you know, your amazing book, for example, you know, and I've heard you say about how that just kind of like the words just flowed through you.
Flows. Flowed is the right, And it was a very new experience for me, Simon. I hadn't ever experienced, I think, you know, isn't that the clues? They're the clues in our lives when things are flowing.
Exactly.
You know, they're the nuggets to sort of follow.
Exactly. I often feel that life it's like surfing, and you find that sweet spot on the wave where you're just cruising effortlessly, and then you know that everything's in alignment. If it's stressful, if it's hard work, if it's not working out, then change, because it's not working. You know. And sometimes that change means doing nothing, you know, and just. So great. So that's the first law that I've kind of identified. The second one is the law of giving. And this is a similar kind of shift in perception to the first one, which is rather than what can I get, it's what can I give. And when we change our perspective, because again, that's not what we're taught. It's always about what can we get? I want this. How can I get it? What are my steps from here to here to get what I want? So the law of giving is the more we give, the more we receive. Yeah. Sometimes we receive in a very kind of directly correlated way to the way in which we give. But oftentimes it's something very different, you know? Does that make sense? It doesn't mean that, you know, if I want money, I have to go and give someone money to get the money I want. It's just that it's the energy of giving. It has to. See, the natural laws are all about balance. This is Taoism. Everything has to come to balance. So if you give, that creates a space that has to be fulfilled. You know, it's just inevitable. So I know for myself, I am every day, every moment, I'm looking for an opportunity to give. Whether it's materially, whether it's of my time, whether it's my attention, you know, whether it's a compliment, whether it's a smile, whether I'm driving along and I just stop to let someone go. It's the energetics of this. If you're a multi-billionaire and give someone, you know, 100 euros, it means nothing to you. So it's not about quantity, it's about the energetics of it. But if you've got 50 cents in your pocket and you give that to a homeless person in your street and that's everything that you've got, then that has more energetic impact than the millionaire that gives the 100 you know?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
and it's about the intention, and you can't fool the universe. That's why these are laws, because they're absolute. So you can't like, well, I don't really want to give, but I'll give because I know I'm going to get something back later. That won't work. It has to come from a very genuine,
higher,
a very genuine kind of place. So what do you
That's
think
wonderful.
of that?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, you're just putting words to a lot of things I've been experiencing, and I had written about, and this one of the chapters around abundance, because it was something, and not just financially, abundance in general, because it was something, and I really struggled with writing about it because I really hadn't experienced it in a sense or understood it in my life. And it's really been the journey for me, that lack, when you're living from the ego and the fear, and like exactly as you described, I'll never have enough, and it's dog eat dog, and whatever in that shift since I've been sick, and that opening up that has happened to me, and that just feeling that connection with spirit, and it's really shifted me into a feeling of wanting to be of service in the world. That's the only way I can describe it, like really, and that understanding the energetics of it, because exactly like you said there, like a lot of days if I have to go out doing, which I do for my mother, the grocery shopping, I just love like having a chat or putting a smile on someone's face, or there's sort of there's a lovely flow that's sort of come into my life from understanding that. And even though my life is very different, and to people who live and the way I live might look like it's not as abundant, it's actually much more. There's a lovely flow of, and it is exactly as you're describing. It's not this, if I give this, I'll get this back. It's coming from a very different place. I have no desire, or I'm not able to live from the place I used to live, because it's eventually it burns itself out, or it's just as you said, it's not, there is a law around this, a natural law, and I'm really experiencing it. I'm more and more is coming back to me, and I'm not doing anything to get that, if you know what I mean. It's just that's a beautiful way to describe it. It's showing up as wanting to be of service for me, or wanting to do that. It's not a desire. And there's a trust, isn't there? I mean, when you come into this place, there has to be a higher trust in something greater. I mean, and none of this, unless you want, I think you have to be in a place of understanding that there is a greater force, there is something greater that is governing these laws, because if you don't, like you said, you can't beat the system. It's not something like, if I do this, I'll get something back. It's just, so it makes total sense.
There definitely needs to be faith here, doesn't there? And a degree of surrender.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were just kind of referring to abundance there, and of course the opposite of that is lack. And both of these, they're a state of being. They have nothing to do with what you do or you don't have. I know people that have a lot materially, but they're not abundant within themselves. They are fearful of the loss of what they have, and the million that they've got isn't enough, but they'll be happy when they've got 2 million. That's their kind of state of being. Equally, I know people that have very little, but are very abundant, And
absolutely,
so I think that's just really, really worth adding. And one of the paradoxes that I've found in my life is that I gave up everything to find the abundance that I now feel. And then that abundance that I do now feel is manifesting in ways in my life that I could never have strategized and planned and tried to make happen myself. But I had to go through that process of letting go of everything. And it's interesting, isn't it? If you look at those kind of archetypal stories of, say, like the Buddha. The Buddha was born a prince, and he lived in a palace, didn't he? And he had everything materially, but he had to go through this process of leaving the palace and giving up everything to find. But he didn't find enlightenment until he found the middle way. And you can kind of read that as a parable for all of us, you know? And certainly it's a story that I can relate to. So this isn't about a rejection of the material world, you know, because I do believe that we are here to fully enjoy and engage with this, you know. The people that are like, oh, I hate this 3D, I can't wait to get off here, go off on a spaceship or whatever. That doesn't resonate with me. It's amazing here.
No.
It's a fantastic place.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. Yeah.
It really is. And, you know, and there is so much abundance around. There really, really is, you know. But you've got to be able to see that. You've got to be able to really appreciate that and be in. So so if we're, you know, if we're living from this perspective of what can I get, you know, which means that if you look at the word want means I'm wanting. It means I have a lack. There's a lack, isn't there? You know? So if you're living from that place, then you're in a kind of lack consciousness or poverty consciousness. Whereas if you're always giving, you're coming from a place, well, I've got so much to give, you know, and the universe will always provide you more to give. So then you're in that kind of abundance consciousness.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And but doesn't that, like, for me, and I definitely was living from a lack, a place of lack, because like you said, I had more materially than I ever have now. And there's nothing, again, I needed to come back into balance. And as I'm enjoying more materially again. But the sort of, I understand why I had to be shown these different ways of living so I could appreciate and come back into balance. So I'm finding myself coming back into balance, but I had to go from having, and it's not just materially, that just was a manifestation of it, but you know, it was in every sense. But I think that has come through, obviously you have to have that connection to the greater universe, or the understanding of that, as you said, that that sort of, once you're in recognition of it. But I wasn't, you know, when we're separate, isn't that part of that separate sense of separation? Everything is limited, and it's up to me, the ego person, to go running around filling up my tank again.
Well, and that's it. If you look at the story of the Buddha, it was also the death of the ego that he had to go through to be able to find this middle way. So I think it's inevitable, if you, like a pendulum, if you've swung too far one way, it's inevitable that there has to be a counter swing almost to the other extreme. And then eventually you come back into the middle and find that kind of middle way. And I can relate to, I can definitely relate to that as well. I'm going to go on to the next of the laws, which is the law of gratitude. And this is almost, the most important. I don't know. I feel that this is the best starting point. If you're listening to this, if you're like so far out of alignment with who you are, with nature, you know, and you're really experiencing stress, maybe physical challenges in your life, I think this is the best starting point, gratitude. You know, and there's a saying, isn't there, in English, that your cup is either half full or half empty, and it's the same cup, you know, and we've really got a choice. We've always got something to be grateful for. If you've got two legs, you can be grateful for two legs. If you've got one leg, you can be grateful for the leg you've still got. You know, we've always got something to be grateful for. And the very first thing that I say every morning as I become conscious is thank you. It's the very first word that I say. And I was taught this by, what was he called? Beautiful, beautiful man. He was a public teacher. Wayne Dyer.
Wayne
Wayne
yes,
Dyer.
I loved it.
And he used to
man.
describe how, as he put each slipper on, he would say thank you in the morning. And with each step he took, he would say thank you. And I remember listening to that and thinking, wow. And he was just such a beautiful, beautiful man. And and so, the law of gratitude, always feel grateful. The more that you feel grateful, the more you receive the things to feel grateful for. Don't wait to receive something before you feel the gratitude. Feel the gratitude first.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's exactly what you're just really reconfirming to me everything I've been learning, like I was saying to you before this conversation, and a lot of them probably show up in my writing because I didn't really know what they were, but I was trying to articulate the shift in me. And exactly that, I had no sense of gratitude. And it's amazing, the minute I got cancer, I suddenly became very grateful for everything, my life. And I found Wayne Dyer. It's very interesting when you say that. He saved my life, I think, as well, because literally I devoured everything of his. He just showed up in my life when I was sick and I was lying on the couch and I was reading and watching and learning. And that was one of the big lessons. And you have to, when I suppose when you start off, if you don't feel it, as you said, you might go, oh, I'm not grateful, but or you're sort of saying it maybe without. But I really started to maybe it was something had to be taken from me, I don't know, to sort of really step into just the gratitude for being alive, for breathing, for and being slowed down, because when you're going so fast, I everything was just moving so fast. I didn't even experience anything to be grateful for. And like the law of giving, like going out now, I found myself after I was sick, just going out for a walk and just going, oh my God, I never really appreciated. I live here by the sea. So just, the simple things, the more you're grateful, isn't it exactly that, the more there is to be grateful for, or you recognize it.
Yeah, sometimes we need to be on the verge of losing what we have to realize what we have, and maybe that's part of the role that disease plays in our life as well too, even if it's a headache, even if you've got a cracking headache, that is so debilitating. We take it for granted not having a headache and being able to just get on. So
that's so true. So true.
So I know you and I could chat about these forever, but I'm going to just crack on through these. So the next law that on my list is the law of preparation and expectation. And someone who teaches these that really brilliantly in her books is Florence Scovel Shinn, who was a writer back in the early 20th century. She was one of the early kind of spiritual writers. She wrote an amazing book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And basically, so this, you'll remember this. So this is really, really simple, but so important, so profound. Prepare and prepare for whatever it is that you wish to experience, and expect to receive it. And the opposite is also true. So if you are preparing for a rainy day, you're going to get a rainy day. So never save for a rainy day. Yeah. How many people do that? We're taught that from an early age. You've got to be safe. You know, all you've got to have a health insurance and all this stuff. And actually, what that system is doing is preparing you for disease. It's preparing you for being debilitated when you're old age, when you retire, because you need a pension fund and all of these things. So let's do the opposite. Let's prepare. I'll give you an example of this. You know, I'm setting up a new retreat at the moment, which will be open next year. And we were deciding how many yoga mats that we need to buy. Now, at the moment, we haven't got any customers. But I'm like, well, let's buy 20 yoga mats, because if we haven't got 20 yoga mats, we can't have 20 customers. If I just say, oh, well, I'll just buy 2 yoga mats until we get more customers, I'm never going to get more customers. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So we have to apply this in all the aspects of our life. Another way of saying this is live as if it's already happening, you know, whatever it is, you know, that you wish to experience. And if it is about material wealth, then live as if you already have that, you know. So you know, but if having financial abundance is a goal that you have, but then you're kind of, you know, you're going shopping looking for the discounted food and saying, no, I'm not going to get that because I can't afford it or whatever. You're not in the vibration of that abundance. So you've got to be in the vibration of the abundance. So expectation is like, it's being in that vibration of it's already done, isn't it? It's like, it's a done deal. If you expect something, it's like, well, it's done. It's happening, you know. So that's the law of preparation and expectation. Okay.
No, I totally
So
it's like the envisioning as well, isn't it? There's a lot of overlap there, you know.
Completely.
When you were saying, because and it's funny because I have sort of visioned a life. It just has come sort of intuitively to me. And naturally, I'm almost living it without realizing it. And I would have in the past gone, oh, I have to save and I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do whatever. But now I'm just sort of assuming, it's almost subconsciously, just remind me there, I'm starting to live it, even though it looks different to maybe what, you know, because there is it's happening in a different way, but that's sort of the wonder or the miracle of the universe. But it is actually happening, you know. So
it's also, I think it was Florence Scovel Shinn as well too that called this active faith. So it's basing your actions on your faith that what you wish to experience is going to experience. She gives an example in her book, I think, of a woman that she doesn't have a home, but she really wishes to have a home. So she goes out and buys curtains. That was an example in her book, you know. So it's applying action then to your faith as well. So really having enough belief to to act on that belief. The next law, which in a way all of these definitely relate to, is what we can call the law of attraction. And I know this is spoken about a lot. Rhonda Burns did the book Law of Attraction years ago and everything. But to put it very, very, very simply, what we put our minds to will manifest. And that goes equally for the things that we don't want. And this is where, so many people fall down with this, because they focus on what they don't want and they experience that. And as we said before, the word wanting is just means lack. So wanting something also doesn't work as well. So we have to focus our minds and our attention where, you know, attention and intention kind of sound very similar, don't we? So we have to
You're frozen.
have I frozen?
Yeah, you just froze a few times.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
coming back.
the words attention and intention are very similar. So, you know, we have to put our attention on our intentions. So this has got nothing to do with the word want and what you don't want, you know. And the more focused and single-minded we are, the more precise and more quickly the manifestation. And the trouble for most of us is that we don't hold our focus, that our minds are all over the place, and we don't have faith, we don't believe, you know, and so our external reality just reflects that back to us, which is why for most people they're experiencing being on a roller coaster, because their minds are all over the place. So this again is why we have to learn to meditate, to still the mind, to focus the mind, to visualize. And so in a very simple way, that's the law of attraction. The energy that we put out, like a magnet, attracts back to us experiences, relationships, material stuff that actually resonate with that frequency that we are sending out. So each of us is like a magnet, literally attracting the experience that we have. Yeah,
that's lovely to use that word magnet, because it's not just, as you said, it's the frequency, isn't it? We're putting out.
It's all frequency. And the other thing I want to add to this, which is very, very important, is to not to talk about your intentions, or to be, and I'll tell you why, because you just lose the energy. You're just wasting the energy. How many people do you know that do that? Or how many times have you done that in your life? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I've got this great idea, that great idea. Nothing happens, because in the words it's like you've
scattered it. Doesn't Florence Sobel? Sorry,
yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry, I think Florence Sobel talks about that, doesn't she? Scattering your energy out.
And it's so true. That doesn't mean, I mean, our words are important. Our words, we are casting spells with our words. Yeah? So setting that intention to yourself and maybe using those words as some kind of affirmation or affirmation, as Mark Atwood taught us, which I thought was a brilliant tool, which I've been using, then that's differently than just going round like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and then nothing happens. So it's really important that we contain our energy. Now, in tantric practices, men are taught to not to waste their seed, because this is part of the same energy. It's exactly the same energy, and without being crude, that, you know, when you go around talking about what you can do and everything, it's like masturbation. You're just wasting your energy and spilling your seed. You know? So I just wanted to
totally get that. That's fantastic. And I've learned that, I think, as well, from Florence, reading one of her books, because I used to do that. It was almost out of a lack of an insecurity, I'll start saying this to everyone, and then they'll reassure me, but then I would run out of steam. And I learned that even when I started writing, so I needed the energy to sort of direct that into what was coming through me. And if I was going off telling, I never said to anyone, really, oh yeah, I'm writing, but I kept it quite contained. And it was from reading what she said, there's a time and a place when we need to talk about things. And yes, maybe we need support, but that's fantastic. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. That's really good.
Yeah, great. Good. Yeah, I really hope by doing this, anyone that's listening, that this will just kind of light a few light bulbs and maybe remind us of things that we already know. These are natural laws, so we inherently get this, but sometimes it's good just to, to put these into words. The next law, as above, so below, as within, so without. So we live in a fractal reality. And so our external experience is a reflection back to us of our internal way of being. So if your life out there is not working for you, rather than wasting a load of energy trying to change everyone and everything, just look at how you can change yourself. Just bring yourself into alignment. When I teach Reiki, this is one of the first things I teach at Reiki level 1, which is about self-healing, because our only work in life is to maintain our own inner balance and centeredness. Because when we do that, everything else just falls into place. Okay.
Yeah. So true.
I'm going to just...
As people say, we'll go through quickly. Isn't it like, though, just very quickly say I know people keep saying about the movie, but just the movie of your life. That's how I can relate to it. Like, what's going on in my world around me now? Because that's totally, that's just a reflection of what's happening in here, whatever is showing up in... I think it's a nice analogy.
Exactly. And, how many people, and I know I've done this in the past, like trying to change everyone and everything. And it's exhausting. And you might get that situation fixed, but then the other one goes wrong. And then we live and then we live in this, like, well, when everything's in order, then I'll be able to relax, I'll be happy. And it never is. It never is. No. So you have to start in here, and then everything does fall into place. Okay, the 7th law, which is the law of karma. Or we could replace the word karma with comeback. It's the law of comeback. So very, very simply, whatever we reap, we will later sow. And it's an energetic thing. This isn't about judgment, morals, ethics. Yeah? There is a saying in English that some people can get away with murder. And some people can get away with murder because emotionally it just does not faze them in the slightest. So our emotions are our language with the universe. I could step on a spider and be traumatized. So there'll be more karma in that for someone else who goes out, punches someone and thinks they deserve it and goes back and has another beer. Because energetically, for me, the emotional consequence of that for me was greater than for the other person. I'm only sharing with you what I understand by karma. So it's, and equally, equally, I'm trying to, equally, I can see a fly trapped in the room, and I'll spend 10 minutes trying to get that fly out of the room. And for me, I'll feel such a sense of achievement and a joy at doing that, that's the vibration that I have set loose that is going to bring something back to me. Whereas someone else could see that fly and just go, God, that's annoying, and squat it, not think a thing about it. Yeah? And they're not going to suffer any karma for that. Yeah? So this is my understanding of it. So I think we have to get away from like morals and what's right and wrong and as I say, ethics with this. It's more about where are you emotionally in your actions, in your words, in your thoughts, you know? And that brings up another interesting point, is like, if you do something which on the face of it, it's a good thing, but it's not where your mind's at, maybe there's a strategy in there that's malevolent. Where's the karma in that? You know, whereas on the inverse of that is that you could run someone over and kill them in your car, but it was completely unintentional, totally an accident. Where's the karma in that? So again, it's all about the emotional state that you're in. I want to offer that as my understanding of karma.
Yeah, no, I get.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there a sort of a truth, or coming from a place of a very integrity or something, that, like, is an example, if you were having an argument or a discussion with someone and you came away very upset, affected by, and the other person might walk away and feel nothing. So, you know, if there was an interaction or an exchange. So is it, it's just, I hadn't...
You see a child at the side of the road, and there's a car hurtling along. The child's about to run out. You go and grab the child and throw it in the bush behind. Your action is you've thrown a child in the bush, but you just saved it from the car. So where was your intention? Where was your heart in that? Do you know what I mean? So this is for me. That's for me.
Really,
I wanted to.
Thank you. No, that's.
And then the law of least effort. I love this one. This is, again, this is Taoism. Flow like water. You know, if there's an obstacle in the way, just flow around it. Don't beat yourself up trying to get through it. You know, paradoxically, the water will eventually wear that rock away, but it takes time. You know, so if there's an obstacle in your life, then it's just not meant to happen. So just take a different route. You know,
isn't it meant to be? Isn't it effortless and easy? I've often,
absolutely,
whatever's effortless, and I love that. That's my greatest, I suppose, law I live by is flow. Really.
Absolutely, and again, that's much more that kind of feminine energy, isn't it? You know, connecting with that feminine energy. The masculine energy is there's a rock in the way. I'm gonna kick the shit out of this rock. I'm gonna blow it up, and
I was doing that for years.
And that again, it creates inertia, it creates stress. There's resistance, you know. So this
dis-ease again.
Dis-ease, lack of ease. So this law of least effort, which is also, we could call it the law of surrender, or the law. The next law, I'm going to really finish these quickly now because I'm keeping an eye on the clock. The law of intention and desire. And this, if we replace wanting with desire and intention, it's a very different energy. And desire isn't, ooh, I really want a new Gucci. That's not desire. That may be what the marketing people tell us is desire. That's not desire. Desire comes up in your belly, doesn't it? If you've ever met someone and fallen in love, you know what desire is. If you've ever seen the most amazing chocolate cake, you know what desire is. For me, I'm a chocoholic. But no, seriously, like we all know what desire feels like. It just comes and takes us. You don't have to create it. You don't have to look for it. It's not, it just comes. you know, and then when you marry that desire with an intention, that's a very, very powerful force, and it's a very different force than just wanting, you know. So, and then
like the inspired action, sorry, isn't it? A little bit, it's because it's coming from that place, not a lower.
These are all
lack.
these are all interconnected, you know. I mean, and then what I just kind of add to that almost immediately is the law of detachment. Because once you've experienced that desire and you've set that intention, you then have to detach from the outcome. Because paradoxically, your attachment creates resistance. I want. It's like you're waiting for the phone to call, and you're sitting by the phone, looking at the phone. It will never call. But if you go away and go off and do something else when you're waiting for that important call, sure enough, the phone will call while you've forgotten about it. That is just how energy works. If you fancy someone else, you know, a guy, a woman, whatever, and you're like, you know, so attached to being with them, they will feel that, they will back off. But if you feel that desire, but you're detached to any outcome, that is magnetic. They will come to you. And that's how it works. I'm going to move on because we just had the 10-minute thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm nearly there. I'm on the very last law now, which is the law of Dharma. And Dharma is purpose. We all have our own unique purpose. And realizing that purpose in a way is the consequence of putting all these other laws or applying all these other laws. So in a way, we could say that Dharma, because everyone wants to know their purpose. Like everyone's like, you know, I know for myself in my kind of like healing and coaching practice, it's probably the most asked thing. I want to know what my purpose is. I know I've got a purpose in life. I don't know what it is. And for sure, we all do. And when we don't live our purpose, that makes us sick, you know, because it's like a flower knows its purpose. Its purpose is to grow and blossom and be a flower. It has no resistance to doing that. It doesn't think about it. It's not waking up every day going, God, I wonder what my purpose is in life. But we do that because we struggle, and we're just like, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, all this conditioning about what we think we should or we shouldn't and everything, you know. But again, like a flower, if we're just living those natural laws, that purpose, we will each kind of blossom. And one more thing I want to add, and then I'll stop talking, is that without doubt, for each of us, our purpose is to be in service. And if every single person on this planet lived their Dharma in service, what an amazing place it would be, because there'd be 8 billion people in service. I would have 8 billion people in service to me, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So we'd all be in service to each other rather than taking and trying to take. And so I think I'll finish off there.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Simon. That's just amazing. I've learned so much from listening to you, and also it has really echoed a lot of my experience that I couldn't put words on either. You know, it's going, yeah, that's what's been happening. And just what you say there at the finish about your Dharma, again, I go back to, and I'd learned this from Wayne Dyer. He talks about, that was at the time, talking about Dharma and your purpose. And he said, your purpose is not just about what you do, but who are you? Who are you being, as opposed to what are you doing? And that really shifted a lot for me, because we are, again, like you said, conditioned, you know, career, job, nothing wrong with that, you know, finding, but it's about who are you? Like it's not just about the doing. And I found that big shift for me. Out of the being comes the service. You know, how can I serve? It's all connected. It's not it's that, yeah, that was a big shift. And if we're all doing that, isn't it? It's just shining your light, being who you're meant to be in whatever situation you're in, whether it's smiling at someone you meet in the supermarket or you know, whatever the interaction is. That's, yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're human beings, aren't we? Not human doings.
Yeah. Well, that's been a long a big lesson for me, and it's and it is, isn't it? This is the challenge of navigating the world we're in with who we are, because that's how it all shifts. But yeah, more being.
So I'm thinking that we should probably bring this to a close. I'd really love to invite anyone that listens to this to, if there are any kind of laws, natural, universal, spiritual laws that they feel that we've missed, please add them in the comments and we'll add them. Let's build a really kind of comprehensive kind of, what's the right word? Manual here. We don't get taught this stuff. Can you imagine if we got taught this stuff?
Yeah.
So let's create a manual that we can share with people, you know. So please, as I said, I'm not an expert on this. As Celine says, she's not an expert. We're just sharing from our experience and what we kind of intuitively know and picked up along the way. So let's build on this. I'm going to, as I say, in the description below, there should be a link to download a PDF of this document that I kind of put together. Okay, so please do that if you'd like to. And great, thanks, Celine. That was just such a great conversation.
Thanks so much, Simon. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. Talk to you soon. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.